Hey folks, what's up? It's Will back once again for another fight card prediction. We're going to be breaking down UFC 212 from Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. As the UFC Featherweight champion, the all-time great Jose Aldo faces off against the UFC Interim Featherweight champion and match-placed Holloway in an unbelievable matchup. Overall, the card is not going to be the biggest pay-per-view we've seen all year. I think that there's definitely 211 was a good pay-per-view. I think there is pay-per-views to come. 214 looks like it's going to be a huge card at the in the middle of the summer there. But overall, it's a fairly decent card. There is fighters I'm really looking forward to seeing who are making their UFC debuts, who are making their having their second fights in the UFC. So I'm looking forward to getting into that in a little second. If you can please like, comment, subscribe, greatly appreciated. Just subscribe and like I do at the bottom of my picks, I put everybody there who I think is going to win, and that's what I want you guys to do, is just put Aldo, Kowalkiewicz, whoever you want, and then I can have a look there and just comment if you think some of my picks are a little bit off, and I'll try and get back to you why I think they'll win. That's pretty much, this is all what it's for, is putting my opinion across and seeing what other people's opinion is, and that's what I'm looking at here. You can follow me at Will Martin MMA on Twitter. You can follow me Will Martin MMA and Bet MMA Tips. You can find me at Will Martin 7 on Carpertech to follow my bets there. As I say, I'm coming into a very busy period of my life, personal life here, with my baby girl coming in the next 2 weeks hopefully. So if you leave a comment down in there, I will try and get back to you as soon as I can, but please don't give me shit if I don't get back to you. So, I work pretty hard, I work a lot of hours through the week, and with this baby coming, I mean, everything's just been going towards that. So I promise I will get back to you as soon as I can, but it just might not be as soon as I usually do. So thanks for that, for all the comments, the likes and everything else, because you really do support me very well. My UFC Stockholm picks are out. That's tomorrow, and it's 3:30 AM. It's early Sunday morning. I just want to get these out before the fights tomorrow and concentrate on watching some fun fights on a Sunday afternoon at a decent time over here in Europe. So we're going to start off in the flyweight division. It's going to be Marco Beltran against the newcomer and Davison Alcantara. Now, Marco Beltran, coming off that tough Latino America show, there's nothing that really stands out with the guy. He's just, probably his biggest attribute is that he's tough. Typical Mexican fighter, just tough. There's nothing that really jumps out to me in this guy. He's coming off a loss to Joe Soto, who caught him with a beautiful heel hook. He came in there in like 5 days notice, and just kind of blew through Beltran. His wins are over Reginaldo Vieira, which is not a bad win. Vieira's just got cut from the UFC. Ning Guan Yu is what it is, not a great fight. That was a split. Marlon Vera, I think, is a good win. It will be a good win, his record, for years to come. But Vieira's going to progress into a better fighter. But nothing too much that I see with Marco Beltran. And he's getting a debuting fighter here in Davison Alcantara, who is a guy who I think is going to be a lot of fun in this flyweight division. I've watched a ton of his fights on YouTube, you will find it. And if you please go and watch his last fight, I can't remember his opponent's name now, but it was a crazy fight. His opponent got dropped twice, Alcantara got dropped twice, and then the finish is just absolutely crazy. The way the strike that he hits him with to knock him out is it was like a backhand fist that kind of came out of nowhere and it literally just put the guy on the canvas, and that was the end of the fight there. Overall, just a fairly decent fighter, and it's a nice addition. He's a big guy as well for the flyweight division. I can see him knocking out Beltran here. I think the one thing I don't like about this is Beltran moving down to the flyweight division. That's going to be a terrible cut. It's going to be horrible. And I just don't think that's going to play well going into the fight. And Alcantara, he's a natural at 125. He will have the better gas tank. He'll be able to go. I think he hits harder. He's faster, a better footwork. He switches his stances a lot. I like him to win this one. I think he can knock out Marco Beltran. So I'm going to go probably early third round TKO for Davison Alcantara. If he doesn't knock him out, I can see easily the 30-27 win there for the newcomer. So Alcantara will be the pick. Luan Chagas against Jim Wallhead. Tough fight for Wallhead going down into Brazil, facing someone like Chagas he's impressed me in his UFC tenure. I think his last fight was, he had an opportunity to get Erick Silva out of there and kind of gave the fight away a little. But if you go back and watch a lot of his fights, he's very varied. He has knockouts, he has submissions. In those submissions, he has heel hooks, very beautiful arm bars where he transitions from the back and he catches that in the flow of the kind of movement of moving to different positions, and he does that very, very well. The guy, once he plants his feet and hits hard, and hits you, you feel it. And Jim Wallhead's been around a long time over here in the European circuit. Made his UFC debut in Germany last year against Yasin Ayari, and he could have won that fight. I think he could have won that fight, but he let Ayari dance around a little bit too much, and consequently he lost the fight through that. But a guy's been around for a long time. It's like 40 odd fights he's had, but he has been knocked out, and I think this is where I think Chagas is just a little bit better everywhere, not by a hell of a lot, but I think being in Brazil, I think is another thing on his side there. But I think he can plant his feet and he can hit Judo Gym. I mean, Danny Roberts, I remember back at Cage Warrior 67, 68, I think it was 68, he got knocked out with punches by Danny Roberts in that one there. So I think that he has opportunities to knock him out. I mean, he is tough. He hasn't been knocked out all that often. A lot of his losses in Bellator and so on were to like Lyman Good was a decision there. I just think that Chagas is tougher. He's more. I just think he's a bit more. I honestly just think he's a little bit more tougher and a little bit maybe more well-rounded than what Jim Wallhead is. I know he's been around a long time, but I just think that on the ground that Chagas can catch you with submissions, very tough submissions as well. And I think he's overall the better fighter. I think I'm going to take Luan Chagas via a TKO. I'm going to take him round number 2. I think he can hit a big shot and put Wallhead down and follow up with some ground and pounds and TKO him from there. So second round TKO there, victory for Luan Chagas. Moving on, we have Viviane Pereira against Jamie Moyle. A fight that I'm actually kind of looking forward to seeing Moyle. I thought she did impress me against Kylene Curran, but that is Kylene Curran, who I don't think she won a fight in the UFC. I could be wrong. I think she maybe won one, but she's maybe 1-4 in the UFC. I know she's lost a lot. Still in the UFC, has a fight, UFC 214 coming up, which surprised me a little. Thought she might have went to Invicta, but no. Viviane Pereira, she's 12-0, coming off a split decision win over Valerie Letourneau, where I think Letourneau won that fight, but Viviane Pereira was the busier fighter. She landed the better shots actually, but I think overall the body of work, Valerie Letourneau should have got the nod in that one. But if you leave it in the hands of the judges and you have the busier fighter who's maybe not landing as much but just being busier, looks busier, it can look good in the eyes of the judges, and that's what happened there. See, Jamie Moyle, she kind of dominated Kylene Curran a little bit in that fight. I'm not sure about who is going to win this fight. It's one of these. It's going to be in my least confident picks down below. I'm going to go Jamie Moyle. I think she can maybe mix it up a little bit. Both girls are like really small, like 5 foot fighters here, so they're not overly big. There's not much power. I think that Jamie Moyle has the more technique with her strikes into grappling situations and could possibly get takedowns from there. But I think maybe Pereira could be fairly decent on the ground coming from Brazil. You never know. Most of the people that come out of Brazil have black belts nowadays, so who knows. I think that Jamie Moyle can use wrestling and be the tougher fighter here and win a decision. Not confident in the slightest. It will be one of my least confident picks, but I'm going to go Jamie Moyle via decision. Moving on to the Fox Sports 1 card with Yuri Alcantara against Brian Boom Kelleher. We'll start with the newcomer here in Brian Kelleher. He's a guy, there's not an awful lot of footage out there on him. He's got a 16-7 record, but he has a couple of wins over a guy that I've been keeping my eye on outside of the UFC. He's the Ring of Combat champion in Holloway. I think, I can't remember, somebody was calling him out. I think it was maybe Gregor Gillespie or Shane Burgos, that's who it was that was calling this guy out. Back at UFC 210, it's the next guy to maybe come up from there. And he has 2 wins over Holloway. So if you go back in the day, he lost a lot via submission. And that is something where Yuri Alcantara has shown these last 2 fights that he is a beautiful submission fighter. Saw it with my own eyes at UFC 204 against Brad Pickett. It was one of the most beautiful submissions I've ever seen. It just, everything flowed, and it caught him. And I was sat next to my good buddy John, and we couldn't believe just how amazing the submission looked. And when I came back home and watched it on the TV, it looked unbelievable. And then he got his ass beat against Luke Sanders and somehow managed to find a way to win that fight. I honestly thought he was done in that first round, and took a lot of punishment. And I think I picked Sanders for DraftKings purposes, and I was really hoping he was going to get that win. And then Alcantara just showed the toughness, the savviness to stay in the fight and then find a way to finish Luke Sanders in that fight. So it's unbelievable there. I just think that everything sides towards Yuri Alcantara here. I think he's the longer fighter. He's got a 7-inch reach advantage. He's got all that experience. It worries me a little bit because sometimes Alcantara doesn't show up. Frankie Saenz fight, but when he shows up, the guy's a destroyer, and I hope we see that from him here. I'm going to go Yuri Alcantara. I'm going to go via submission. Early round, in fact I'm going to go late round number 1 for Yuri Alcantara there. Staying in the bantamweight division, we have Johnny Eduardo against Matthew Lopez. This is a fight I'm going to be targeting betting wise. If I think the way the lines are going to come out, I think the person I'm picking will be the underdog, but we'll need to wait and see. We've had some early lines for the Stockholm card over here in the UK, which was fairly decent. I got a couple of bets out very, very early, which was nice. But yeah, Johnny Eduardo coming off that win down, who was it against last time? I watched that fight not long ago. Manny Gamburian, of course, he went and retired him, second round TKO victory there on the Bader Nogueira card back in November. But he's a guy we don't really see all that often. I mean, it was another year before that when we seen him against Aljamain Sterling, where Sterling completely dominated him and then stopped him in the 3rd round. But before that, Eddie Wineland, he knocked him out. That was one of the most kind of shocking knockouts of that year, because you barely see this guy. He's been in the UFC for 5-6 years, and he's only maybe had 5 fights. So yeah, he can be a vicious striker when he wants to be. Some heavy leg kicks. I do think he's a little bit, he can be taken down and he can be controlled, and that's where I think Matthew Lopez is going to have a big advantage here. I think he works, his entries into his takedowns are really, really nice. I think he has enough striking on him to go in and make it at least competitive, but I think he's going to use that striking to set up the takedowns, or maybe get into a clinch and then go from the drop down for a single leg and take Eduardo down from there. I'm really, really looking forward to seeing Matthew Lopez. He's the guy I really like watching fight, and I thought his fight against Mitch Gagnon was a very fun fight. I thought he used takedowns very well. He did get hit a little bit, which you can't do that with Eduardo because he does crack. But I think Matthew Lopez is going to get takedowns in this fight here. And if he's underdog, he will be cheaper on DraftKings. He'll be a guy I'll be looking at there. But my pick's going to be Matthew Lopez. I think he can do just enough to win rounds through takedowns, through positioning, through just being dominant on the ground. So my pick's going to be a decision win for Matthew Lopez, and that's hard going down to Brazil and doing that, but I am pretty confident that he can do it. Middleweight division, we have Tonio Carlos Jr. against Erick Spicely. Like this fight for Sapa. I forgot his nickname, but Antonio Carlos Jr. I just don't see how this matchup really works towards Erick Spicely, who's looked good in his last 2 fights. He's had first round submissions over Thiago Santos. Cara de Zapato, that's the nickname. Got it eventually. Thiago Thiago Santos and Alessio Di Chirico, I just don't. He can't grapple with this guy because Antonio Carlos Jr. is the more. He's on a complete other level to Erick Spicely here, and on the feet, I think they're both kind of washing each other out. I don't think none of them have any really standout striking skills. I just don't see where Erick Spicely wins this fight. Carlos Jr. is the better fighter on the ground. End of. And I think that Spicely's going to want to try and take it there, maybe try and test Carlos Jr. And I don't think that's the best thing to do whatsoever. His best game plan would be to stay in the feet, maybe go into clinch, try and put him against the cage, hit some shots, move out, and maybe mix in takedowns, but don't stick around on the ground with this guy because he will sweep you, he will get to a dominant position, he will advance his positions, and he will beat you if it goes down the ground. And I mean, he's coming off that win over Marvin Vittori, another Italian fighter there, who I thought he might have had a chance to win that fight. I still do think he could have won that fight, but Antonio Carlos Jr.'s just superior ground game came through there, and I just don't see Erick Spicely being on the level of this guy. So could I see a submission? Possibly. I can see him getting an advantageous position and Spicely's trying to move and trying to better his position and maybe leaving a neck out there or an arm and catching an armbar. I'm going to go a third round submission. It's a bit of a flyer, this one. A third round submission for Antonio Carlos Jr. If not, I can see him getting the decision victory there, but I'm going to go for the finish. Carlos Jr. via submission, round number 3. And the main fight on the prelims here, we have Raphael Assuncao against the debuting Marlon Moraes. Now, a lot of you guys might not know who Marlon Moraes is. I've known about him for a long time. If you're a hardcore kind of fan who watches a lot of fights like I do, you know who this guy is. This guy was the World Series of Fighting, the only World Series of Fighting bantamweight champion, and he's finally made his way over to the UFC here with, I mean, Justin Gaethje's coming soon as well in July. So I'm looking forward to seeing where this guy stacks up because he's coming into a short tank of a division at 135. It is one of the most elite divisions, I think, in the UFC, with varying skill sets and just fighters. I mean, Renan Barão's coming back down, John Dodson, John Lineker, Cody Garbrandt, Dillashaw, Rivera, Sterling's in there, you name it. I probably forgot guys off there. Duquesnoy in that, he's not even ranked in that. Thomas Almeida, there's fighters galore in that division, which is probably actually my favourite division in the UFC at the minute. But Marlon Moraes, overall a really good striker, very, very competent footwork, very good at switching stances, fights out of Toms River, New Jersey with like Frankie Edgar and Eddie Alvarez. He has Mark Henry as a head coach. You see a lot of that in his game plan with like his repertoire with like kind of like Frankie. He reminds me of Frankie Edgar, but just not as kind of refined as him. Really heavy leg kicks, nice counter striking, but he hasn't faced the caliber of competition that Raphael Assuncao has. A lot of the fighters has. I was just watching his fights maybe a couple hours ago there, and he's fought some guys who are serious cans, like Joseph Barrias. He took him out in a minute with leg kicks, and that guy had no real. He shouldn't really been in there with Moraes. The last fight against Aldo Silva, that finished weird with a knee injury there, but it was a guy who, when I heard that, I was like, who's that guy? And he's fought a lot in the kind of regionals in Brazil and all over the world, in the Netherlands and so on and so on. 2 wins over Josh Hill. I like the win over Shayman Moraes. I think that Moraes is a fairly decent fighter, but nice to see him in the UFC here, and I think he's got a tough fight, but I do think the fight is very, very winnable here. He's against Raphael Assuncao, who is coming off that win over Aljamain Sterling. I thought it was a very close fight. I picked Sterling. I bet Sterling because I thought this fight's going to be really close, and if it went to Sterling, I would have been happy, but I do think the right scorecard was for Raphael Assuncao. Not by much, but I did think he won that fight. Overall, just a great pro. Seems like a really nice guy. I think what he needs to do in this fight, he needs to get off first and maybe stop the angles that Marlon Moraes cuts, and kind of go from there. The one thing I worry about is his output compared to Marlon Moraes' output. I think that Marlon has a higher output than Assuncao, but I do think that Assuncao can maybe put him against the cage, maybe get a takedown, but I do see Moraes popping back up to his feet a little. Tough fight to call. I've been going back and forth on this. I've put polls out on Twitter. I've been asking some guys who I really respect in looking at fights and betting fights and so on, and what they see. And I'm going to go with Raphael Assuncao, not by much. I can see this being one of the closest fights of the night. I'm going to go a 29-28 decision for Raphael Assuncao there. Excuse me. Can't say I'm very confident. I won't be betting it, no unless the line is seriously out of whack. But the pick's going to be Raphael Assuncao via a very close, in fact probably a split decision, I'm going to go by. So moving on to the main card, we're starting off in the welterweight division. Erick Silva against Yancy Medeiros. Erick Silva, the guy that I actually really like watching fight, but he's one of the most kind of infuriating guys to watch because you know he has the talent there, and he can be a destroyer when he wants to be. Probably against the more kind of weaker guys that you'll ever see in the UFC, like your Takanori Satos and so on. But he does give you wow moments in his fights, and he has done whether he's winning or losing. So that's something maybe to look forward to here. Coming off that win over Luan Chagas. Big win for him. I think if he lost that one, he would have got his pink slip from the UFC. Just an all-action fighter. We'll go for things. We'll throw flying shit. We'll throw big heavy leather, heavy leg kicks. But his chin is going, and if you plant the right shot in this chin, you will completely put Erick Silva out. Now, Yancy Medeiros, I think he made a great move. I know we haven't seen much of him, but I think he made a great move moving up to the 170 pound weight division, up at welterweight there, and it showed in his win over Sean Spencer. I thought that he looked overall, he just physically he looked a lot better, and he definitely fought a lot better. And once he got it to the ground, the guys he sticks to. He's worked a lot with the Diaz brothers, Gilbert Melendez, and so on, Jake Shields. And you can see that pays off. He's got those long limbs. He catches you down there in the body triangle, and it's very tough to get out. He's also a little bit chinny. We've seen that in the Trinaldo fight where he was like wobbling around everywhere. But the guy's tough, and the guy sticks around, and he's always there. I think he can beat Erick Silva in his hometown here. I was originally going to go with Erick Silva here, but I can't trust his chin. And I think that down on the ground, it's definitely an advantage for Medeiros if it goes there. On the feet, I see it being pretty close. So in that, I think that maybe Yancy Medeiros, this might be my flyer of the night, can potentially knock out Erick Silva if he can catch the right shot. So I'm going to go either a late second round TKO or a very early TKO victory for Yancy Medeiros there. It's a little bit of an out there kind of Hail Mary play, that one, but I don't trust picking Erick Silva. Medeiros is the play there. Middleweight division with Paulo Borrachinha against Oluwale Bamgbose. I'm really high on Paulo Borrachinha. I think that, and I know he fought, he was a guy I was watching before he came into the UFC. I seen him in Tough. I try and look for fights on YouTube of fighters coming out of Brazil, and I've seen Borrachinha through Jungle Fights. There is fighters coming that I've kept my eye on. Poliana Vieira's one I keep my eye on. Amanda Rebus, who's coming into the UFC in the summer, is another one I have my eye on. And there's many others coming out of Brazil, which hopefully will make their way to the UFC very soon. But Borrachinha is a guy, I think he's a destroyer. I know he's coming off that win over Gareth McClellan. Gareth McClellan got his walking papers this week from the UFC. Probably one of the worst fighters on the roster. But he went out there in his last fight, and he just took it. He literally came straight forward and started throwing heavy motherfucking leather towards Gareth McClellan. Once he caught him with that shot, he swarmed him, and the finishing sequence to that fight was beautiful. And say what you want about Gareth McClellan, he is a really kind of tough fighter, gritty fighter. He'll stay around, but Borrachinha just ran straight through him. I don't think he can go straight forward against Bamgbose here, because Bamgbose for the first round is extremely dangerous. I do worry about Borrachinha late on in the fight as well, because I do think he can gas, and that's something he definitely has to work on. But Bamgbose is one of these guys for the first 5 minutes who is extremely dangerous, very powerful, very athletic. But I think if you get by the initial period of him being dangerous, you can beat him. So with that being said, I'm going to go with Paulo Borrachinha for a first round, really late in the first round, TKO victory there. One of my most confident picks of the night. I don't rate Bamgbose all that much. I think that he gasses pretty bad. His striking is not very technical, but very powerful. We've seen that in the Sarafyan fight as well. So, but my pick's going to be Paulo Borrachinha. Hopefully the odds aren't too amiss that I can bet this guy, have him in my DraftKings team as well. Borrachinha's going to be the pick there. Middleweight division, we have, it's actually quite sad this is going to be the last fight of Vitor Belfort in the UFC, but I do think he's got a matchup here against Nate Mardquardt, which he can go out in a bang with, because Nate Mardquardt is not the fighter he once used to be, and he's very shot-born himself. Vitor, you can't really say much more than this guy. He's faced the who's who of the middleweight division and so on up at 205. He's faced John Jones, Anderson Silva, Luke Rockhold, Bisping, Musasi, and I'm missing loads of guys out there that Weidman, really tough guy. He's fought the who's who for the last 20 years, and this is going to be his last fight in the UFC. Quite sad, but it's definitely the right time. The UFC shouldn't be keeping this guy about, because he's becoming a punching bag for your up and coming fighters like Kelvin Gastelum, who really just put a beat down on him last time. It wasn't even close. He got nothing off in that one, and Gastelum's fast hands just put him down. Nate Mardquardt lost to Sam Alvey back in earlier on this year in Denver. He's very shot-born as well, but very dangerous overall. He's got some submissions in there. We've seen that against Tahuna and so on, and we've seen his knockout of Maya a long time ago. That was it seems like years ago that went down. But Belfort, last fight here, he might just throw. You never know. He's had so many accusations, and it's been true of stuff that he's been putting in his body. Would not surprise me if he came in here yoked to the absolute limit and goes out to be like Vitor a few years ago, where he was just head kicking every motherfucker that was coming close to him and just clipping the chins clean off them, and then riding into the sunset and probably going and fighting in Risen or Bellator or wherever he wants to go to make some money. I think Vitor Belfort can knock out Nate Mardquardt. I really do. I think that it's something I don't like talking about, is like PEDs and stuff like that, but with Vitor Belfort, he's synonymous with the stuff in the past, and we've seen that, so it wouldn't surprise me. But I think he can knock out Nate Mardquardt here. I think if they get into a little bit of a slugfest, all it takes is Vitor just to catch him with something, and Vitor has always been one of the best guys. Once he hurts you, he swarms you and he takes you out. I'm going to go, can't believe I'm saying this, I'm picking Vitor Belfort in a UFC fight, 2017. I'm going to go first round, TKO victory there. I can't say I'm overly confident. I have no clue which way this fight can go. If it goes past the first round, I think it's over to Nate Mardquardt. He can take over from there. But I'm going to pick Vitor Belfort, and I hope he enjoys his retirement, or he goes to Risen and makes some money, or Bellator, so on and so on. All the best to him, but Belfort's going to be the pick there. Round 1 TKO after he swarms Nate Mardquardt. Co-main event of the night, we have Claudia Gadelha against Karolina Kowalkiewicz. Two girls who have tried very hard to beat Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and Joanna's just been the elite fighter in the 115 pound strawweight division. I do think that Karolina gave her a better fight. Was in it for the whole 5 rounds. Was a little bit outclassed. I think if she had a little bit more output, she would maybe be in there a bit closer. But Joanna is the top of that division. I think Claudia and Karolina are the two girls, kind of 2A and 2B definitely in that division, with maybe Nama Yunus coming kind of in there behind. But the way I see this matchup going, it's a kind of varying kind of fight, because if this was over 5 rounds, my pick all the time would be Karolina Kowalkiewicz. Over 3 rounds, I think it's Claudia Gadelha, because I think she can use our overall game. I don't think she wants to stay in the feet for too long, so our game plan's got to be keep it kind of active on the feet and then look for the opportunities to take Kowalkiewicz down, and that's very tough to do in itself. But I do think she can take down Karolina, and as long as she doesn't initiate in the clinch and take all the strikes that Karolina throws in the clinch, then she should be able to get takedowns. But it's a little bit of a big if. But I don't see. It's a hard fight for Karolina to go down to Brazil and beat Claudia in her backyard there. On the feet, I think she can keep it competitive. Karolina is the more technical, sound fighter there. Doesn't really hit hard, so that I don't think she hits as hard as maybe Joanna, or has the output of what Joanna has. So that's something for Claudia to really fall back on. That the output's not going to be there for like it is in the late rounds with Joanna when she puts it on you. I think she's going to get takedowns, and I just see her winning at least 2 rounds out of a 3-round fight. So I'm going to go a 29-28 decision for Claudia Gadelha there in the main event. And on to the main event, I'm tempting fate here. I just thought everything that seems to be going on at the minute, there seems to be fights falling off main cards and stuff, and I'm just really wanting to get to this time next week, 4 AM in the morning, knowing that Jose Aldo and Max Holloway are still going to be in the fight. I know Max Holloway's going to show up, but Jose Aldo, I'm just never sure with that guy anymore. Great fight, unbelievable fight. Been looking forward to this, I think, since probably November or December it would be, when Max Holloway became the interim champion, that these two were going to fight. I was really looking forward to it. Went back and watched the fights, the most recent fights, and some older ones, just to see the eliteness that Jose Aldo was. The one thing that I hate about his loss to Conor McGregor, and now you all know that I'm a Conor McGregor fan, is people talking absolute garbage about this guy. He has one loss and people write him off. Now, in saying that, I picked Frankie Edgar against him at UFC 200. I thought Frankie could make the adjustments, and coming off that loss to Conor McGregor, he could win that fight. When I first watched it live, I thought it was a good performance. He got the win there. See, when you go back and watch it, it was an absolute masterclass, and he completely schooled Frankie Edgar for 5 rounds. For me, it was maybe a 49-46. So one of the rounds was close and Frankie got it, but he really did school Edgar with beautiful leg kicks, beautiful counters, beautiful overhand rights, and he really busted the face of Frankie Edgar up. What do we know about Jose Aldo? Very, very fast striking arsenal, unbelievable leg kicks, very good takedown defense. Pretty much you don't take this guy down. If you do, he skips back to his feet pretty instantaneously. But I mean, he is facing a guy here in Max Holloway who I thought a long time ago that he'd maybe make the top 5 of the division. I didn't think he'd move on to that upper echelon level, and that's pretty much came since the Conor McGregor fight. So since then, the guy's been pretty much untouchable. This guy, he's looked unbelievable. His last fight against Showtime Pettis, the one thing I didn't like, that he ate a lot of leg kicks in there, and I think that Aldo can take a lot from that. It was very early on in the fight, right enough. And the one thing that I always see with Max Holloway that I really like is the adjustments that he makes. He's one of the best fighters for making adjustments, changing his stances, and once he kind of gets himself comfortable in there, he really starts to pick you apart, and he's just a really great fighter to watch. Very dangerous in all aspects of the game. His confidence is through the roof at the minute. Really, really interesting fight. My pick, it's hard to see. The thing is this, if it was anywhere else, if it was in America, I think I'd probably pick Max Holloway or Canada. I think Aldo, he's going to have that hometown crowd on his back. He's going to have them oohing and ahhing every strike that he throws. I don't think he threw enough against Frankie Edgar, in all honesty, but what he did throw, he threw with purpose, and he really put a beating on Frankie there. But this is a weird fight to pick. I want to pick Max, but I think that Jose Aldo's going to win this fight, and I put on a bet a long time ago. Jose Aldo, 1 unit. It was actually a parlay with Kelvin Gastelum before he got taken off, but I have 1 unit now, minus 125 on Jose Aldo. I've seen people max bet on Max Holloway, and I don't blame him for that. I think it's a fairly decent bet to throw out there with the odds that there is, because this could be a very close matchup across 5 rounds. I just don't think Jose Aldo's done yet. He is the greatest featherweight that the sport has ever seen, and you'll have your corner people there like, Conor knocked him out, da da da. Jose Aldo is the best featherweight of all time, period. Not even a question. And I just think that people are once again letting that knockout kind of cloud their judgment a little bit, and it maybe clouded my judgment a little bit at UFC 200 with picking Frankie, but I like Aldo in his hometown here. I think he can make it I think it can be very close. It could be 48-47 here. I don't think this will be the last time these two guys fight. I think it could be one of those fights where it's very close, and you can maybe see a rematch in a year's time or so. Or Aldo, who knows? This guy fights once a year. That's the one thing I want to see about Aldo, is just him fight a little bit more, because he is one of the best fighters, period. And we don't see enough of him, unfortunately. It's been nearly a year since we've seen him at UFC 200. So, Jose, I know you're not watching, but please, if you win this fight, even if you lose this fight, get back in there. Don't leave it another year, because fans like me, fight fans that like breaking down technical kind of fighting analysis, you're one of the best guys to watch with your striking arsenal, with your takedown defense. So my pick is going to be Jose Aldo via decision, maybe 49, 46, 48, 47, very, very close fight though, and I can see people giving it to Max Holloway. It's that kind of fight that I think it can be really, really close, but I'm going to pick with my initial play of Jose Aldo via decision for that one there. So that is my picks for UFC 212. Really looking forward to the card next week, and I mean, we're on a run of fight cards now. I think it's 11 events in 12 weeks, which is absolutely shit hot. I say the next few weeks I'm probably going to get my events for New Zealand and Singapore out really quick. My baby's due on 13th of June, so that's a couple of weeks away. Once that goes down, I'm going to try and get my videos out, because I say I'm not going to miss any videos this year if I can. I only missed one last year, which sucked big time, but I had a problem. That was a YouTube problem, that they didn't want me to make a video for some certain reason. But I will try and get those videos out, whether it's on the day of the event or so on and so on. I will get them out for you guys, because you guys are awesome. You support me so much. So that's my picks for UFC 212. Comment in the drop down section below with your picks, with your analysis. What do you see? And you can follow me on Twitter, Will Martin MMA. Just enjoy the event, and I'll see you all very, very soon for UFC New Zealand. Derek Lewis against Mark Hunt. Looking forward to a few fights on that card. But until then, take care. Hope your picks are great, and I will catch you all very, very soon. All the best.